January 2026. Artificial intelligence is no longer a future threat. It's replacing workers right now. Venture capitalists who fund the companies building this technology are openly predicting that this year, 2026, will be when AI stops making humans more productive and starts replacing them outright. An MIT study published in November found that 11.7% of American jobs could already be automated using current AI technology, not future AI. The technology that exists today. Goldman Sachs estimates that if AI is widely adopted, 6 to 7% of the U.S. workforce will be displaced. The World Economic Forum predicts 92 million jobs will be replaced globally by 2030. And here's what makes 2026 different. Multiple enterprise venture capitalists, without being asked about it, flagged labor displacement as the most significant impact of AI adoption coming this year. When the people investing billions in AI companies volunteer concerns about unemployment, you know something's changed. The conversation has shifted from will AI take jobs to what do we do when it does? And the answer they're proposing? Universal basic income, free money from the government, a guaranteed check every month, no strings attached. Sounds good, right? I'm going to show you why universal basic income isn't a safety net. It's a trap. A mechanism of control disguised as compassion, and why accepting free money from the state might cost you something far more valuable than a paycheck. Your freedom. Before we talk about UBI, you need to understand the scale of what's coming. This isn't some distant future scenario. 2026 is the year when predictions become measurable reality. Here's what's actually happening right now. Companies are eliminating entry-level jobs because of AI. Not hypothetically, actually. A partner at Black Operator Ventures named Antonia Dean put it bluntly. Many enterprises, despite how ready or not they are to successfully use AI solutions, will say they are increasing their investments in AI to explain why they are cutting back, spending in other areas, or trimming workforces. In reality, AI will become the scapegoat for executives looking to cover for past mistakes. Translation? Even if companies aren't actually deploying AI effectively, they're using it as cover for layoffs. But many companies are deploying AI, and it's working. 80% of the US workforce could have at least 10% of their tasks affected by AI. For 19% of workers, at least half their daily tasks could be disrupted. The most exposed roles? Writers, public relations specialists, legal secretaries, mathematicians, tax preparers, customer service representatives, paralegals, accountants. Notice something? These aren't blue-collar manufacturing jobs. These are educated, white-collar, relatively high-paying careers. Previous automation targeted factory workers. AI targets knowledge workers. People with college degrees making $60,000 to $80,000 per year. And it's not slowing down. By 2030, McKinsey estimates that 14% of employees globally will need to change careers. Oxford Economics predicts 20 million manufacturing jobs replaced worldwide. The unemployment rate among 20 to 30-year-olds in tech-exposed occupations has risen by almost 3 percentage points since the start of this year. Young people entering the workforce are finding that entry-level roles that used to exist simply don't anymore. This is the context in which universal basic income is being proposed. Not as a nice idea, as a necessity. Because when millions of people can't find work, social unrest becomes unavoidable. And that's when governments step in with a solution. Here's how they sell universal basic income. Everyone gets a monthly payment. No requirements, no means testing, just free money to cover basic needs. In Catalonia, they're testing 800 euros per month for adults, 300 euros for children. In Wales, people who aged out of foster care get £1,600 monthly before tax, $1,280 after. In the United States, pilot programs in Stockton, Los Angeles, Chicago, and dozens of other cities have given people $500 to $1,500 per month. The results, according to advocates, are wonderful. Recipients report reduced anxiety, higher life satisfaction, improved emotional health. They invest in personal projects, start businesses, go back to school. Mayors and progressive organizations endorse it enthusiastically. Network Lobby for Catholic Social Justice calls it extremely effective in reducing poverty. The Economic Security Project says it's the answer to our social support systems that aren't fast or flexible enough. And the logic seems airtight. If AI is taking jobs, people need income. If people need income but can't work, give them money directly. Simple, humane, progressive. Except there's a problem they're not telling you about. Here's what universal basic income advocates emphasize. No strings attached, no requirements, unconditional cash. And in the pilot programs, that's mostly true. You get the money. You spend it however you want. Nobody checks what you buy. Nobody monitors your behavior. But pilot programs aren't policy. Pilots are experiments with private funding or temporary government grants. Real universal basic income would be a permanent government program, funded by taxpayers, administered by bureaucracies, subject to political control. And that's where everything changes. Because when the government gives you money, the government owns you. Let me show you the mechanism. Imagine universal basic income is implemented nationwide, $1,200 per month, enough to cover rent in a modest apartment and basic food. Not enough to thrive, but enough to survive. Who gets it? In the pilot programs, everyone in a certain demographic or location. But nationwide, the costs are staggering. If every American adult gets $1,200 per month, that's 330 million people times 1,200 times 12 months. That's $4.7 trillion per year. For context, the entire federal budget is around $6 trillion. You'd nearly double government spending. So they won't give it to everyone. They'll means test it. Income limits, asset limits, requirements. And that's where control begins. To receive UBI, you'll need to prove eligibility, file paperwork, register with the government, provide financial information. Your bank accounts will be monitored, your assets tracked, your income verified. Already, we're not talking about free money, no strings attached. We're talking about a government program with bureaucratic requirements. But it gets worse. Because once the government is giving you money to survive, the government can attach conditions. This is where UBI transforms from welfare to control system. It starts subtly. Reasonable conditions that most people support. To receive UBI, you must be vaccinated. Public health is important, right? We can't have disease spreading. Perfectly reasonable. To receive UBI, you must have a verified digital identity. We need to prevent fraud. Make sure the money goes to real people. Perfectly reasonable. To receive UBI, you must maintain a minimum social credit score, no criminal record, no unpaid fines, good standing in the community. Perfectly reasonable. And then the conditions expand. To receive UBI, you must comply with environmental regulations. We're fighting climate change. Can't give money to people with excessive carbon footprints. Perfectly reasonable. To receive UBI, you must accept approved housing. We have a housing crisis. Can't waste money on people living in unapproved conditions. Perfectly reasonable. To receive UBI, you must participate in community service. Can't give money to people who don't contribute to society. Perfectly reasonable. Each condition, in isolation, sounds reasonable. But together, they create a system of total control. Miss a vaccine? Payment suspended. Speak against the government online and your social credit score drops? Payment reduced. Refuse to move into government-approved housing? Payment terminated. You think this is paranoid speculation? Look at China's social credit system. Behavior monitoring. Punishment for dissent. Rewards for compliance. It's not hypothetical. It's operational. And Western governments are quietly building similar infrastructure. Digital identity systems, central bank digital currencies, surveillance technology. All the pieces are in place. UBI is the perfect delivery mechanism. Because when your survival depends on government payments, you'll comply with anything to keep receiving them. But there's an even darker mechanism built into UBI, the elimination of property ownership. Here's how it works. To qualify for UBI, you'll be subject to asset limits. If you own too much, you won't receive payments. After all, UBI is for people who need it, not people with wealth. So what happens to home ownership? If you own a house worth $400,000, you have an asset. You're not eligible for UBI. You're on your own. But if you sell that house and rent, you're eligible. $1,200 per month, every month. Guaranteed. The financial pressure is obvious. Sell the asset. Rent. Receive UBI. And this isn't speculation. It's already embedded in welfare programs. In the United States, to qualify for Medicaid, you can't have more than $2,000 in assets. To qualify for SSI, the same. Housing equity often counts against you. UBI would follow the same model. Own nothing. Receive payments. Own something. You're disqualified. This is the World Economic Forum's vision. You'll own nothing and be happy. Not a conspiracy theory. An economic system already being implemented. The wealthy keep their assets. Corporations own the housing stock. You rent everything and receive UBI to pay for it. Permanent dependency. No wealth accumulation. No generational transfer. You become a perpetual renter of your home, your car, your appliances, your existence. And if you step out of line, if you violate the terms, the money stops, and you have nothing to fall back on because you own nothing. This is what universal basic income actually creates. Voluntary serfdom. Serfs in medieval Europe were bound to the land. They couldn't leave. They worked for the lord. In exchange, they received protection and a small plot to farm. They weren't technically slaves. They had some freedoms, but they were completely dependent on the lord's goodwill. UBI creates the same relationship. You're not enslaved. You're free to do whatever you want, as long as you comply with the terms of your payment. And the terms can change, anytime, for any reason, because the government controls the money. Don't like the new vaccine mandate? Too bad. Don't like the carbon restrictions? Too bad. Don't like the speech codes? Too bad. Comply or starve. That's not freedom. That's control dressed up as compassion. And here's the economic mechanism that makes it even worse. When you inject trillions of dollars of UBI into the economy, that money doesn't create value. It just inflates prices. If everyone has an extra $1,200 per month, landlords raise rent by $1,200, grocery stores raise prices. Everything adjusts. The UBI doesn't make you richer. It makes everything more expensive. You're running faster just to stay in place. But you can't stop running, because if you refuse UBI, you're now competing in an inflated economy without the payment everyone else has. You're locked in. And the people who benefit? Asset owners, corporations, the wealthy who don't need UBI. They own the housing you're renting with UBI money. They own the businesses selling you goods at inflated prices. They own the system. UBI isn't wealth redistribution. It's a mechanism to transfer money from taxpayers to corporations through the poor. The government takes your taxes, gives it to UBI recipients, who immediately spend it on rent and goods owned by corporations. You're the middleman in a wealth transfer system, and you get just enough to survive, but never enough to escape. So what's the alternative? They tell you AI is taking all the jobs. There's no other option. UBI is inevitable. Accept it or suffer. But that's a lie. AI doesn't have to eliminate jobs. It can augment human work, create new industries, free humans for higher value tasks. History shows this. When the Industrial Revolution automated farming, 90% of Americans stopped being farmers. But unemployment didn't skyrocket. People moved into new jobs, manufacturing, services, technology. The same can happen with AI, if we let it, but that requires a free market, entrepreneurship, innovation, investment in human capital. UBI does the opposite. It creates dependency. It removes the incentive to adapt. It centralizes control. If you're receiving UBI, why take a risk starting a business? Why invest in new skills? Why work hard? The government check is guaranteed, safe, comfortable, And that's exactly what they want. A population that's dependent, compliant, controlled. The alternative is harder. It requires education, retraining, risk-taking, building wealth through ownership and entrepreneurship. It requires freedom, real freedom, not the controlled freedom of UBI dependency. This isn't the first time a government has offered security in exchange for freedom. Roman citizens traded their republic for the stability of empire. They got bread and circuses. The government took care of them. They lost their political power, their economic independence, their freedom. Soviet citizens were promised security. Work was guaranteed, housing provided, healthcare free. They lost everything else: property rights, free speech, the ability to leave. The pattern is always the same: crisis, government solution, dependency, control. And it always starts with something that sounds reasonable, helpful, compassionate. Universal basic income sounds like progress, like caring for people who've been left behind by technological change. But look at the mechanism. Look at the incentives. Look at who benefits. It's not progress. It's a trap. So here's your choice. When AI takes your job, and it might, you can accept UBI, $1,200 per month, enough to survive, controlled by the government, subject to their rules, their conditions, their changes. You'll own nothing, rent everything, depend on the state for your survival, and you'll tell yourself you're happy, because you have to be, because there's no alternative, because you've given up the ability to build anything else. Or you can refuse. You can adapt, learn new skills, start a business, invest in assets, build something the AI can't replace. It's harder, riskier, more uncertain, but it's yours. You control it. You own it. You're free. The government wants you dependent. Corporations want you renting. The system wants you controlled. Don't fall for it. Universal basic income isn't free money. It's the price of your freedom. And that's a price you can't afford to pay. If this video opened your eyes to what UBI actually is, share it. Because when the job losses hit, and they will, people need to understand what they're being offered. Not a safety net, a trap. Not security, dependency. Not freedom, control. You'll own nothing, and you won't be happy. Now you know.